What is NLP exactly? Well, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I first heard about it in medical school, of all things, as a way that some students were using it to improve their memory for exams. Then heard about it as a technique to help with autistic kids. I heard about NLP in self-improvement courses, how you could use it in business, how it could help with marketing and sales. So I really want to know more about it. So I invited an NLP expert and friends to the program who's been an advocate for encouraging physicians to not only use it for their practice, but to also incorporate it into their life and to their career. We'll be talking with Dr. Maiysha Clairborne on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, it's Dr. Mike Wu-Ming. Welcome to another episode of Bootstrap MD. We have one of our favorite guests on. You know her, but I have to do her proper because I want to make sure we've had some new listeners on who may not have heard from you. Dr. Maiysha Clairborne is a graduate of Morehouse School of Medicine. She's an integrative family doctor and a master practitioner of NLP, what is the topic that we're going to discuss today. Of NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy. She's a founder of the Remapping Academy. She's over 20 years experience where she helps her clients transform their lives by helping them master their mindset and communication while eliminating fear, self-doubt, negative emotions that get into their way of their happiness, productivity, and peace of mind. Sounds like something we all need. Welcome again to the show, Dr. Maiysha Clairborne. Maiysha, I'm so glad to see you again.
So good to be back. Thank you so much for having me on. I so appreciate it. I just love having these conversations with you. And holidays have been well for you? Yeah, quiet, which is how I like them. And I was just telling a client of mine, the new year in January, I get a little bit disoriented because you have all of these goals and intentions that you're setting and you're reflecting on what's happened. And of course, 2020 was a crazy year anyway. And then January comes and you're like, now what? So I'm in this space of sort of reconnecting and reorienting to what is to be an amazing year I hope, for everyone, actually.
Well, yeah, the new year is always time to not only reflect back, but also leading to new changes, new goals, new ideas, new projects. And I know you've got an event coming up, and some of my listeners have been going on, what is this all about, this NLP Academy? So I wanted to have you on the call, maybe get some education for me. I know NLP, I first heard about it actually back in medical school, where in addition to reading Principles of Internal Medicine, I was also reading other books on personal development, including Tony Robbins is where I first heard about it. And he was implementing about it. I also heard about NLP, not only in the business world, but also with dealing with medical conditions. As you know, I have an adult son with autism, and there was some mentioned that NLP could help with that. So I've learned about it peripherally. I've heard about it through business, through marketing, and not only and helping with different conditions, but I don't really know what it's all about, and I'm probably not the only one. So I wanted you to help explain it to us. What exactly is NLP?
Well, so the long name for it is neuro-linguistic programming. And I love how you created that because it does float in so many different spaces. It floats in the marketing space, in the sales space, in the therapeutic space. Therapists and medical doctors use it. NLP is sort of a cousin to hypnosis. It's a methodology, it's a way of being, it's a way of speaking that allows you to really get at the root cause of your habits, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, to reprogram at the unconscious level these behavior patterns. And how it does that is by having you, number one, understand the inner workings of the brain, understand the inner workings of the mind. Because when you understand the inner workings of the unconscious mind, then you have access to leveraging it, to managing it, to connecting with it, and to being in the driver's seat of all of your thoughts, actions, and behaviors. So that's the premise of what NLP does, and the effects of NLP. And quite frankly, there's a set of tools and techniques, but it's also a way of listening and a way of speaking. So there's these components. Thereby, we kind of call it, like a methodology. It's a set of tools and techniques encased inside of a methodology.
I'm curious, as a physician, I mean, how did you first hear about it? Was it kind of a part of your training? Is it something that you sought outside of the typical medical curriculum? I assume so.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because yes, it was outside of the curriculum. When I first started my practice back in 2007, I'm an integrative medicine doc, as you said, and so I played around with other practitioners that were integrative in nature, that were outside the box. So I met a hypnotherapist, and I also met a practitioner of NLP back in 2000, and I think it was 2008 actually, and we became friends, but we also did some trade work together and some barter work together. And so I got to experience it. That was my first introduction to it as a clinician. And in 2012, I started to realize that this could impact my coaching, because I had already become a coach in 2008 and was coaching patients and wellness and lifestyle and those types of things. And by 2012, I was doing more of the lifestyle and stress management, and really starting to understand that underneath the resistance to change is some internal conversation. Now, my background in undergrad is psychology, so this is something that I've always had an interest in. And so I began to realize, as a physician in integrative medicine, some of the resistance that I was encountering to changing your diet, to the weight loss, to changing, setting boundaries, things of that nature, were not just surface environmental things. They were more internal conversations. And that's how I got interested in NLP and hypnosis, and the third technique that I ended up learning, called timeline therapy. And that's when I trained in 2013.
I'm also curious, you said how it's helped your patients. How have you personally benefited from NLP?
Oh man. So I will say that one of the things that I love about NLP is the way that it has you be intentional in your listening, so that you can hear the communication behind the words. It has made me a more effective listener. Especially in my business, when I'm doing sales calls and I'm doing, coaching with clients. But personally speaking, even in my relationships, and more recently, and this is an interesting thing, because when I first trained in NLP, I was not a parent. Obviously, I didn't become a parent until about 6.5 years ago. And I've been doing this for 7-8 years, and so. So in my personal life as a parent, it wasn't until this year, actually, during the pandemic, that I realized, being home with my son since March, that I realized the depth of the benefit of NLP in my parenting, being able to listen to my son differently, to be able to access his learning strategies, because I'm like right there at the helm of his classroom, his learning, and to be able to help him when he comes up against his own internal conversations about, things being difficult and challenging, and to be able to empower him. So that's been something on a personal level that's been very life-giving. And of course, in relationships and in my own internal dialogue as well. So it's given me a lot of personal power to move past fear, to eliminate even some of the limiting decisions and belief patterns that have had me stuck in the past around taking action in my life, whether it be relationships or business. So that's how it's benefited me personally.
Awesome. And you mentioned how it's helped physicians. As you know, majority of our audience are physician entrepreneurs. How can NLP help physician entrepreneurs?
Well, so we'll talk about the physician part first, like in terms of the clinician, and then I'll bring it on to the entrepreneurial aspect, because I think there are a few different dynamics to consider, right? So, because as I've helped, as you help, I think we help in the same space of that integrative, that sort of, you do more regenerative and I do more of the functional piece. When I have coached docs in the past, and this is why I train. By the way, one thing I didn't mention is not only do I practice it, but I train. And that's what the Mind Remapping Academy is about. And one of the reasons I chose to train others in this discipline is because it's very specifically because I feel like it is a natural progression for physicians to adopt this technology with their patients. And so as a clinician, if you're doing things like weight loss, if you're doing things like stress management or lifestyle medicine, functional medicine, you're going to come across the patient's resistance, their own internal conversations, the patient's internal beliefs and doubts about whether they can or cannot, make these changes, their own emotional weight that keeps physical weight on, right? So to be able to have the skills and the tools to move past those resistances, to help them move past their resistances, to circumvent them, and to be able to help them to create new strategies, because that's part of NLP, is determining what are their internal strategies that they're using that are not working, and then reinstalling new strategies for them is gold. When I adopted NLP into my clinical practice, it was a game changer for the results that I produce for my patients. So as a clinician, NLP and hypnosis as well, because I did hypnosis on a patient who was terrified of needles and would not let me draw her blood. And eventually I was like, we got to get some blood. And I hypnotized her. Her and I drew blood, and she did not feel a thing. And when she woke up, she was like, I don't know what you did, but we need to do that every time we draw blood. So these are the types of things that learning NLP and hypnosis can benefit as a clinician in your practice. And inside of the program that I run, and we'll talk about that later, there's a coach designation for you coaches out there who want to implement it into your coaching practice, whether you're a career coach or a lifestyle coach or a health coach or whatever, right? This is something that's very powerful in the coaching space, which is why I have used it for so many years and decided to become a trainer. Now, let's flip to the entrepreneurial side, because NLP is wonderful in sales. In fact, if you ever do a sales training, and you know this, Mike, if you ever do a sales training, there are a lot of NLP-based techniques that they'll teach you. One of the things that I love about learning NLP as a tool is that a lot of times when you're dealing with objections with potential clients, if you're a coach, or potential patients, if you're in a cash-based practice, the way you listen in NLP will help you to really get to the heart of what the objection is. Rather than having to give a cookie cutter response, you can actually deal with the objection itself easily and effortlessly and dissolve that resistance. In any case, in sales, it helps you to develop that instant connection with clients. When I would do discovery calls with my clients, it would be an hour and they would feel like, I don't know why it is, but I feel like I've known you for years. Now, part of that is just that I connect easily with people, but part of that is just the way I listen inside of my training helps people to feel like they're the only person in the room, in the world, in fact, right? And to gain that skill is very powerful in a sales conversation, a coaching conversation. And then I think finally, just from an entrepreneurial standpoint, dealing with your own mindset, dealing with your own mindset. You know, I'm always talking about get your mind right, you know, dealing with your own mindset around being an entrepreneur and all the things that come up, the imposter syndrome, the,
Right.
you know, the I'm not smart enough, the I'm not good enough, the no one's going to buy from me, all those limiting decisions that people have made about their business and themselves before they even get started. NLP and learning NLP and understanding the nature of how your mind works can help you to really sweep that out and clean that out.
No, that was powerful. Thank you for sharing. So we've
Of
covered
course.
some topics that I know some listeners will be listening. It's like, oh yeah, this sounds good, but it kind of sounds almost woo-woo sometimes, you know. Um, and I just want to let you know that some of you are clinicians who are using NLP and you don't even know it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can say that with, you know, in terms of like dealing with weight loss patients, dealing with helping them with imagery and imagery to helping them achieve their goals. But you mentioned a couple things that I want to kind of define. One is the unconscious mind and the power of the unconscious mind. What is that all about?
Yeah. So, you know, first of all, I want to say it may seem woo woo and it is a little woo woo, but it actually is science too. So,
Well, I'm
it is,
just
I
getting
mean, you
it
know,
out there because I know listeners will be
yeah.
like,
No,
oh,
no, I get it. And that's what I tell people like, yeah, it may be a little woo woo, but guess what? This is the art of medicine. This is the art and practice of, you know, of things beyond outside the box that are intangibles that make you the artist as a physician. We, you know, the scientist is great, but then there's the art of medicine. There's the art of coaching. And NLP, while it is based in neuroscience, it is based in that. It is, there's an art to it. There's a creativity that's to it. So if you want to access that aspect of you, and it's okay. It's okay to be a little woo. If I want to give docs permission to be woo woo. I want to give docs permission to be creative and to be outside the box with this, right? Because it's important because of our societal, our industry societal conversation of you stay on the straight and narrow. And what will people think is a limiting decision. It's a limiting decision. So unconscious mind. So if you were to think about an iceberg. I love the iceberg analogy because people are somewhat familiar with this. So if you think about an iceberg in the deep ocean, uh, there's the part of the iceberg that you can see, and that's the conscious mind. That is the things that we're aware of. You're aware of, you know, your immediate thoughts that come into your head, the decisions that you make, this your willpower, you know, your reactions. It's all like there's some of that stuff is conscious mind, right? Your day-to-day operations, that's conscious mind. Then if you were standing, say, in an aerial view and you were to look down, there would be a portion of the iceberg just below the surface that you could still see. And some would call that your subconscious mind. So it's just under the water, right? And there's a little bit deeper, right? Some of your emotions and your fears and, you know, the ones that you're kind of aware of, but like you're not immediately thinking about, right? That's the subconscious mind. And then there is the part of the iceberg that goes deep, deep, deep down into the ocean that you cannot see, into the depths of the ocean. And that is the unconscious mind. This is where your core values, your core belief systems, this is where trauma is held, big T and little t. This is where your deeper fears are. The deeper limiting beliefs and decisions are. And so this is the unconscious mind. And what most people don't understand is that we are run by our unconscious mind. We are the thing that runs us is our unconscious mind. And when we're born, when we're a child, when we're young children, you know how young children are so intuitive. It's because young children are connected to that part of them, that deeper self. they're still connected. And as we grow older and we learn and we get influenced by these values that were given to by our parents and by our friends and by our teachers, then we begin to form these opinions of ourselves, these beliefs about ourselves. And then all these little traumas happen, and then they get pushed down and down and down. And so the importance of the unconscious mind, or reconnecting to the unconscious mind, which is essentially what NLP and hypnosis allows you to do, is to reconnect with that deeper part of yourself, to access those wounds so that you can heal them and narrow the gap between what you think is possible and what's actually possible, right? Narrow the gap between that awareness and the awareness of what you think is happening, what's actually happening, right? Because what happens is we get all of this sensory information, and based on the filter of our brain, we react a particular way. But when you can understand via NLP, when you can understand why you do the things you do, when you can understand where it comes from, you can reconnect with the unconscious mind, then you can heal that and you can control it. You can control all your reactions, your behaviors, your responses. It doesn't mean that you won't get angry from time to time, but then you can stop and say, well, what is the problem really? You catch yourself.
Yeah. And I guess using that analogy, I guess, if you're thinking that's an iceberg, I guess a ship may be like some new project or some new item, and then
that's right.
You see, oh, it's a little iceberg, that should be a problem, and then boom, you're the Titanic, right?
That's
because
right.
of the big below iceberg with all the unconscious, the trauma, all you mentioned, that, and then it just then it sinks, right? I mean, that's very
so
powerful.
Great. I love that. I might have to use that. It's like all the stuff that you do all the stuff that you do will run into that iceberg. It'll be a risk for a sinking ship because of all of that crap that's buried. Right.
And you can't move forward. You stop. You sink.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. So taking that, how does that lead into having a mindset that's unstoppable?
Well, because it puts you at the helm. It puts you in the driver's seat, right? When you're at the driver's seat, it doesn't mean that you're not, it doesn't mean that the life doesn't happen, that you're not impacted from time to time. But it's all about how you respond and how you react and what you do about it. You can be so much powerful in the face of any circumstance, right? So right now, we are in a pandemic. And there's a difference between how people with an unstoppable mindset might react and respond in a pandemic, and how people who are subject to being,
We've seen that.
We've seen that.
Lots of examples about that.
Right. There's a difference between being at the effect of the pandemic and being at the source of your life inside of a pandemic, right? And so what this allows you to do, what I consider unbreakable mindset, is you may be impacted. It's not like when this stuff started happening, when Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd were murdered, I wasn't impacted. I was deeply impacted. I was deeply upset, hurt. There was a lot of pain for me. And from that, I was able to look at, well, what is mine to do, right? I was able to also process it, like stop, call a friend, right? Talk it out, process it. Where's the pain? What is the pain about? How is it connected to me personally? What do I feel personally? Like for me, it was like I felt a sense of helplessness. But then I could like look at that and say, okay, but am I really not helping? Am I really not contributing? And then the truth was, I was in the place that I was contributing, right? And then opportunities happened, and now I'm contributing in a new way with the conscious anti-racism. So I say that to say, when things impact you, when world events happen, like the pandemic, like Black Lives Matter, like whatever, like losses in our lives, we can experience the emotion and know that we are not the emotion. We are not the emotion. The emotion doesn't have us. We experience the emotion and we allow ourselves to experience the emotion, because if we push it away, then that's just repression, and that's going to come back up in other ways, right? So it allows us to experience the emotion and then move through it powerfully and still be in action in our lives and producing, and sometimes even use that emotion, leverage it, like in martial arts, how people leverage other people's energy, leverage that energy to produce something magical in our lives. So that's what that unbreakable mindset is, and that's what NLP allows you to be able to do.
And it sounds like, a lot of times where we have this helplessness, it's this loss of control, and it's a way of getting that control, correct?
Yeah. In a way, it's a wonderful marriage between control and surrender. Because see, as physicians, we are fanatics about control, right? So yes, it's a way to be at the source of your life and be in control of thoughts, feelings, emotions, but in a way that also gives you surrender to an acceptance to whatever's happening in the moment. So it's a marriage between the two. It's a rhythm, actually. I could say balance, but I don't really like that word. So it's a rhythm between, having control and surrendering when you need to surrender. Allowing yourself to connect to the unconscious mind, allowing yourself to surrender to the emotion that you're experiencing so that you can process it, heal that wound, and then be back in control. But the control part is controlling responses instead of reacting, responding rather than reacting to the world, right? Responding rather than reacting. So that's the control piece. But the surrender piece is allowing yourself to be in whatever space you are, and acceptance of that, and not make it mean anything.
Right. And that's hard to do.
It is. It's a practice. It is a daily practice. And there are structures that you can put in place around that, which is, again, a part of the tools that you learn in that toolbox of NLP and hypnosis and NLP coaching.
And especially for physicians, as oftentimes we are the decision makers, the ones that are supposed to be the one that people go to for helping them with the decisions.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about. I know you're busy, but you have an event coming up. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so we are getting ready to start our winter training, our winter NLP training. And it's a quadruple certification. Imagine that. And I know physicians love to hear that. Oh my God, quadruple certification. But I'll tell you what it is. It's NLP. You get certified in NLP. You get certified in hypnosis. You get certified in coaching. So it is a coach certification program. And there's a technique that's a cousin of NLP called timeline therapy. It's a very precise way of eliminating negative emotions and limiting decisions. And it's derived directly from NLP. So you get 4 certifications. It's a 6-month training. So it's a bona fide coach training that is accredited by the American Board of Hypnosis and NLP coaching, and the American Timeline Therapy Association. So it's not just some fly-by-night training. It is actually an accredited training. And it starts on January the 19th, Tuesday, before the inauguration of our new president, and one day after Dr. King's birthday. So sandwiched right in the middle there. But it starts on Tuesday evening. And if you're interested, our registration closes on the 15th. If you're interested, you want to either reach out to me directly by going to remappmymind.com, and you can click the link and fill out an application, and I'll reach right out to you directly. You can, if you know that you're connected with me on Facebook, go ahead and message me on Facebook. I have no problems with that. Or LinkedIn, if you know you're connected with me on LinkedIn, go ahead and reach out to me. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We have a small class, a relatively small class, to keep it intimate so that I can keep track, and it's sure to be something that you can apply not only during the training, but immediately after. It's not one of those theoretical type trainings where you have someone talking at you the whole time. It's the type of training that's very engaging and interactive, where maybe the first half we do the topic, and then we start to go into breakout rooms, and you practice in between, and you come to office hours if you want to and ask questions. So it's that kind of training that really puts you on the court, so you can see almost immediately in the training how it's beginning to work in your life, and apply it with your patients, your clients, because that's part of the homework, to go out in the world and make magic.
And, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think this is one of the few NLP trainings that I heard where physicians are certification, or there's some emphasis on physicians being certified. Is that true?
Yeah. I don't know of any other NLP training that is more for our industry, for us, right? There will be a couple of non-physicians in there, because I feel like this training is a training for people who they can use in all aspects. But most of the people who will be in this training will be healthcare professionals, physicians, therapists. I think this is wonderful for psychologists and therapists to implement, some coaches, so I think that this will be something that will expand over time. But I don't think there's any other physician trainer. I don't know of any other physician trainer that's currently certifying other doctors.
And I know we covered it a little bit, but I just want to emphasize it. What's the importance of physician certification? Why you feel so passionate about why that should occur?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people who will go out and just start coaching, and they don't have any training, right? And I think that it's important, if you're going to be dealing with people at the level of therapeutics, that you need to have the skill and the listening to be able to produce the most powerful results. In terms of certification, I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like that certification for physicians is optional. It's the training that's important. But if you're going to certify, why not have the tools? Why not have extra tools? Because, like, no shade to the ICF, but I like to say no shade to the ICF, and what I'll say is that, they train you and they give you tools, they give you methodology, but they don't always give you tools. They give you frameworks, but they don't always give you those deeper tools that the unconscious mind awareness, to be able to deal with maybe patterns that you're not used to seeing. But with NLP, you get the certification, you get the tools, and you get the toolbox as well. So I think that that's important about this particular type of certification, is that it meets the standards of the ICF. It exceeds the standards of the ICF because there's some extra tools that would not be taught in a traditional coach training, right? Whether you're implementing it as in a practice, or whether you're implementing it in areas of your life. So that's what I have to say about certification itself. I feel like certification creates the platform of standardization, that you have been trained and you have proof that you've been trained, right? And that it's accredited. There's a regulatory body that says that you have this skill. So that's, I think, to answer your initial question, the importance of certification. It's also a good marketing tool, if I were to be 100% honest. Right?
Well, you can true. Unlike with most patients, when you're with your client, it does stand you out. And doing so, knowing that you spent the time, you spent the money to do that, and actually could lead to you charging higher. Let's elephant room, allow you to charge higher prices, and it shows that you were serious about this, and you've gone through the training, and you learned from the number one expert, right? It's just like a powerful training event. Can you give us that link again? We'll have it in the show notes as well.
Sure, sure. Remappmymind.com will take you to the Mind Remapping Academy. It'll take you to the homepage, and right there you can click that link on the homepage to go ahead and apply and submit a form, and then you can reach out to me also on Facebook or LinkedIn. I am / Dr. Maiysha on LinkedIn, and on Instagram, at Dr. Maiysha, and on Facebook at Dr. Maiysha. So.
Maiysha, again, always a pleasure. Thank you for sharing this powerful strategy or powerful methodology, and all the best of luck to your event. Any last minute words before we end the show?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Mike, because you have always been the kind of person that really shines a light on things that are not on the straight and narrow, that you expand the minds of doctors. You expand the possibilities of what's possible for them. And I really want to acknowledge you for that. You know, you and I, we're tight, but I do feel like, and so I tell you this all the time, but I really feel like that other people should really get the value of your platform, especially in this capacity. And I just appreciate you for that. I think that the one last thing I will say is that it's okay as physicians that we step outside the box. It's okay as physicians that we be a little woo-woo sometimes. It's okay as physicians that we don't take the straight and narrow path. And I want to give you permission as listeners to go your own path and be willing to be a little woo-woo sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you for the kind words. I completely agree, because guys, we've all been trained to be on the straight and narrow. And if you're listening to this, maybe something isn't working for you right now because you're on that path. Why not go a little bit to the left? Why not go a little bit to the right? At the end of the day, what you're doing is what I always preach. You keep moving forward.